Heya, I'm Heya, and this is my didactic guide for phase 1 of top. There are plenty of more visual or quick guides out there, but I want to try something different, something a little bit more specific and direct to the point, so people that have trouble understanding those, maybe this helps them. So let me know if it works for you or friends that you have that is having trouble with other guides or toolboxes, and let's see how it goes. All strategies that I'm going to be mentioning here, they're all consistent with null strategies, so it's probably what you're going to expect when you go into any party finder on Ether, Crystal, Dynamis, and Primal. So without further ado, let's get on with it. The first time you get in an instance, you're gonna make a conga line of markers. It could look slightly different based on who gives you the markers, but it's always a conga line. The 4 people on the left are group 1, and the 4 people on the right are group 2. This is important for you to know who adjusts to who. The spots are fixed and they look something like this, because on top, most of the time you're gonna have a bunch of debuffs spawning and you need to know who is going to adjust to who. And when we say adjust, we mean that the person who is adjusting is now gonna do the mechanic as the other group. For example, here on the left side we have people from group 1, and let's assume that the healer during a certain mechanic gets the number 3, and a DPS also gets the number 3. Because they have the same number, they can't do the mechanic on the same spots. So following the priority, because the DPS always adjusts to the range DPS and the healer, and they have the same number, these DPS now needs to adjust. So what that means is that for now on this mechanic, the DPS adjusting is gonna do the mechanics as a group 2. Following that same logic, if for example here on the right side on group 2, if the tank and the ranged DPS have the same number, let's say they have 2, because it's the same number and the tank adjusts to everyone, now this tank is gonna do mechanics as if he was group 1 and the ranged is still group 2. That's what it means to adjust. So, just a quick thing before we continue. Remember the priority we're talking about? Because healers never adjust, you don't have to worry about it. If you are a ranged DPS, you only need to focus on the healer. You can ignore literally everyone, just focus on the healer of your group. If you are a melee, you have to pay attention to the ranged DPS and the healer of your group. And if you are a tank, yes, you have to check everyone on your group and adjust as necessary. So you can literally just make your entire group the first 4 people on your party list. So here, for example, it's the point of view of a tank. So you're gonna sort the melee, the range, and the healer just like this. You can literally ignore the bottom part if you want. You can just focus on the 4 people of your group. So during the mechanic, it's gonna look something like this. So if you pay attention here, there's a lot of stuff going on. Ignore the bottom part of it. And my other advice is ignore the jobs, ignore the names. You don't have to worry about who you are adjusting for. All that matters is that you are adjusting. So if you are a tank, for example, look your number and check the bottom 3 here. If any of these numbers is the same, like here for example 4 is the same, you're gonna do the mechanic as the other group. In this scenario here, Isra is group 1, but because it has the same number as this person here, it doesn't matter who it is, because it's the same number, now Isra is group 2. And you can just keep that in mind. Try to simplify the way you think about the mechanic. It doesn't matter who you're adjusting for. All that matters is that this number here is the same as one of these. And if you are a melee, you're gonna do the same thing. You're gonna be in first place here as a melee, put the ranged and the healer below you, and everything's gonna be a lot easier. Now that you know about groups and how the adjusting works, let's move on with program loop. We don't consider intercards. Ignore these for the mechanic. Only think about cardinals. So if you are group 1, I want you to pay attention to D. above everything else. So because you're group 1, you literally ignore north. You ignore anything north related. If you're group 1, always look to D first, and then you check the cardinals counterclockwise. So if you don't have a mechanic to do on D, you're gonna look to C. If you don't have a mechanic to do on C, you 100% have to do it on B. Always. You will never be solving mechanics on north as a group 1. Likewise, group 2 is the same thing, but the opposite. If you are group 2, you completely ignore D. You will always look to north first. If you don't have a mechanic to solve at north, you're gonna look to B. And if you don't have a mechanic to look on B, it is 100% C. You will never do any mechanics on D. Okay? Now, do you see these numbers here? These numbers tell you which set of towers you need to soak. So for example, because I have number 1, one of the 2 towers that are gonna spawn here on the start, one of those is mine because I am number 1. So I soak the first set of towers. Number 2, the second set. Number 3, the third set. And number 4, the fourth set. Now before I talk about the tethers, let's just see what happens here first, okay? Just so you can visualize what I'm saying. You see how the entire party is still standing still on C? Everybody except the number 3s need to stay here. Number 3s walk forward, still aligned here with C. You need to be aligned here with the C marker like this. Number 3s are gonna be ahead, and the entire party is gonna be here. Now let's take a look at what happens. So this is the basic dynamic of this mechanic. There's gonna have 2 tethers. The other one is over here. You can see because of the boss hitbox. And we're gonna have 2 towers. This is basically what program loop is about. 2 people are gonna explode the deformations, which are the tethers, and 2 people are gonna soak the towers. After these towers are soaked and the tethers explode, 2 different people are gonna take these tethers and explode somewhere else, and 2 people are gonna soak the towers. They're gonna be spawning after this, see? Boom! Now you see how there's 2 new towers that spawned, and now some people are gonna go take the tethers? Just like that. Now, how do we solve this? The towers, you already know, I already told you. If you're number 1, you soak the first set. If you're number 2, you soak the second set. If you're number 3, you're gonna soak the third set that is still gonna spawn. And number 4s are gonna soak the fourth set that are gonna spawn last. But what about the tethers? The tethers also have a priority. Number 3s are gonna soak the first tethers. Number 4s are gonna soak the second tethers. Number 1 are gonna soak the third tethers. And number 2 are gonna soak the last tethers. Now about the goals. If you are number 1, keeping this prio in mind, your job now is to identify which tower you need to soak. Because I'm group 1, my tower is always looking at D and going counterclock. So I ask myself, is there a tower on D? No. Is there a tower on C? No. Then my tower is the one at B. Always. I don't even have to think about north. I literally just look to my clock, check the other one, and if none of those are, the third one is where I'm supposed to go. So I'm gonna go to my first tower. If you are number 2, your job is to identify where is the safe spot and wait for the second set of towers. So if you are 2, you should be moving to here, because towers are always safe from explosions. So anywhere in this spot here is safe. So number 2's job is to go somewhere along this place here and wait for the second set of towers to spawn and identify your correct tower following the prio. If you are a number 3, your job is to walk forward, wait for the tethers to spawn, and then go to your correct spot to explode the tether. And how do you choose that? Exact same prior thing. If you are number 3 exploding a tether and you need to go to a spot, you look your prior. Whoever here from the trees is group 1 is gonna go to D, and whoever here is from group 2 is gonna go to south, because there is a tower on north and B. You literally just look to your priority cardinal and rotate. Look to your priority cardinal and rotate like that. You always check and you go to your spot. Number 4s are gonna do something similar to 2. They're gonna search for a safe spot, which is here, as we already talked about, and then they're gonna choose which tether they have to soak and where to go. So for example, the tethers on this case are gonna be one at D and one at C. The number 4s are gonna be somewhere here in the safe spot, and whoever is group 1 from the 4s are gonna take this tether here because it's on D, and whoever is group 2 is gonna take this tether here because it's on C. And after they get the tether, they need to go to a safe spot. So let's watch this, because the 4s probably the one that have to think the most here in the first set. They should be already looking which tether they're supposed to take. And now you see how the towers spawned here and here. Now the same thing. After they get the tethers, whoever is group 1 is gonna explode here, and whoever is group 2 is gonna explode here. You always explode far away from the towers. For program loop, that's it. Now let's move forward to Pantokrator. For Panto, I went back to this frame just so we can see the arena a little bit better, like in actual in-game point of view. For that mechanic, group 1 will always pay attention to this marker, and group 2 will always pay attention to this marker here. So group 1 here on southwest, and group 2 here on northeast. The boss will show a telegraph that will look something like this. This is just an example. If it's cleaving the arena like this, do you notice how the marker is partially covered here and here? The way you know where you should be standing with your group is all based on the marker. So for example, here, this side of the marker is being cleaved. This is not safe, this is not safe. But 3 is not being cleaved here, and 1 is not being cleaved here. So these are the spots for group 1 and group 2. You literally just look at the marker. Whichever side of the marker is not being cleaved by the telegraph is the side you want to be for the group. Group 1 looking at 3 and group 2 looking at 1. If the entire marker is being cleaved like this, there are no safe spots for the marker because it's entirely covered. By default, group 1 rotates clockwise and group 2 rotates clockwise. So if the entire marker is covered, all you gotta do is clockwise from the marker and you know your safe spots. Group 1 here and group 2 here. Now let's go back to the actual footage of Pantokrator. Now when the Pantokrator cast finishes, you will get your numbers, and this is the moment you're gonna use to check if you have to adjust for someone or not. And when you're done with that, you're gonna take a look at the markers depending on your group. Telegraphs appear because none of the markers are cleaved, so that means that they are safe. So group 1 here, group 2 here. Now that you know which spot you're gonna stay with which group, you're gonna do the following. This mechanic has only 2 spots ideally you want to start in. So if you are number 1, like Megumi and Fenta here, you always want to be close to the center of the hitbox, very near the telegraphs like this. If you are 2, 3 or 4, you will always be here at the ring of the boss. An important thing to notice is, do you see how all these spots are aligned directly at the center of the safe zone? So for example, here, this entire space is the safe spot for group 1. but we are always standing aligned to the center of it. You want to make sure you are at the center, so it's a lot easier to do the mechanic. You see how after 2 cleaves of the telegraphs, it reached exactly the middle point we were waiting? If you are 2, 3, and 4, all you gotta do is literally stand still on the ring of the boss at the center of the safe spot you have. If you do that, you don't have to search for the telegraphs because they are gonna reach you. And look at this. Because the direction the boss is gonna spin is random, you don't know if it's gonna be clockwise or counterclockwise. So you can literally just stand there and wait and let the boss tell you which direction it's doing. So now that we know that the boss is rotating clockwise, the party always stays here on the back part of the safe zone in relation to the direction the boss is spinning. And whoever has the one, or in the future who's gonna explode next, always wanna be ahead, away from the party. So this is gonna be the missile spot and this is gonna be the party spot. Once the number 1 explodes, right here, you're gonna see how the explosion of 1 happens at the same time as a laser beam from the boss here on the party. See, at the same time, laser beam happens, explosion happens. After this, 1 goes back to the party, 2 is gonna leave the party. And we're gonna repeat this cycle every time. 2 is gonna explode, 3 is gonna leave. And after 3 explodes, 3 go back to the party, and 4 leaves. This mechanic becomes much harder when people do random movements. So let me make your life easier by explaining to you the 3-step movement. So the 3-step movement is pretty simple. Think about the following. Here, for example, I am number 3. Number 2 is already here, so it's going out to explode. Whenever it's gonna be you on the next turn for the missile, when the previous person explodes the missile, or if you prefer, when this timer here gets to 6 seconds, or even the laser beam hits you, you have 3 puddles to bait before you explode. And those 3 puddles, you can very comfortably place them in very specific spots. So the first puddle here, see, laser appears, explosion appears, less than 6 seconds. The first puddle, you will always bait them here with the party. You're not gonna leave the group yet. You're gonna bait your first of the 3 puddles here with the party. When you bait this puddle, you're not gonna run in a straight line here. This is not optimal, this is not good. You're gonna bait a terrorist puddle in front of your friends. You're gonna move like this, inside of the boss. If you move inside of the boss, you're gonna place your second puddle somewhere around here. And once you do that, then you walk to the ring of the boss. And there is gonna be the place you're gonna bait your third puddle. Now here, if you are a melee player, be it DPS or tank, when you bait this third puddle, you can instantly go back to the group. If you are ranged, you can also do that, but if you are a healer, for example, you can also choose to go back once more, bait 1 extra puddle here near the wall, and then go back to the party. Both of these work really well and it's consistent, but what is important is the first puddle after the explosion of the previous number has to be with the group here. The second one has to be inside of the hitbox, close here to the telegraph. And the third one has to be here on the front part of the safe spot. And then after that, it's up to you. You either go back to the group or you bait 1 more outside and then you go back. Let's see that in practice. And keep in mind, I am very laggy. So I'm already moving here, but on the server, I'm still here actually. So my puddle is gonna be something like this. So you bait 1 of the group, and then you leave, bait 1 ahead, and 1 here out of the boss. If I were a melee, I could have already decided to go back here with the group to bait with them here. Or if you are a caster, you can just sidestep a little bit, bait 1 more puddle, and then you just walk forward with the group. both works, it's up to you. Now, after Pantokrator is done, there is only one thing left, which is the spreads at the end. And now let me just give you the golden tip already. A lot of people are often lost in where they should go. Like, even though they know their static positions, they are lost in the arena because they kept spinning. So think like this. The place you started Pantokrator is the place you're gonna end Pantokrator. You're basically gonna do a 360 in the arena. So here, for example, because I'm group 1, and if you remember, group 1 was on this area here for Pantokrator on the start. Look where I am just now. Pantokrator just finished. Look, I'm right here, back on D. Same thing on the other side. So if you start on one side of the arena, when Pantokrator ends, you're gonna be on the very same spot you just started the mechanic. Now here, the positions are static. I'm gonna place here now with symbols basically where you wanna be at, depending on your job, and those are always the same. You're gonna sort that out whenever you decide your groups at the start of the instance. So if you're group 1, you're gonna be here on this left side here, and if you're group 2, you're gonna be on the other side here. The tanks are always here, max melee on north. As for the positions, as you just saw, you're always gonna be there. The healers will always be around this marker here. The melee DPS will always be between those two markers here, like this and this. Same thing here on the other side. And the ranged are gonna be between those two markers here, like depending on which group they are. And remember, you're always staying inside of the hitbox. You will never be outside of the hitbox, never, in this mechanic, because otherwise you are going to wipe everyone. So go to your static spot and wait for your beans to hit. And the tanks, let me just give you also the advice, because I see a lot of people struggling with this. When you go to this position here, you see those little crystals, the prey markers on everybody's head? They're gonna be going like up and down, and they're gonna make a little thwomp sound. All you gotta do is count how many times it does this sound. Let me just play here. Kaboom. See? Did you hear the little thwomps? It's always gonna do that 5 times. If you can't hear them, or if your game has sound muters for whatever reason, you can just pay attention to the animation. When it goes down 5 times, you use your invuln. If you do that, you're gonna survive the entire tank buster, and you either get to phase 2 or wipe to enrage. And that's it. That's phase 1 of the Beetle. Hope you enjoyed. I tried to be as quickest as possible with the advices I had. So let me know what you think. Was it useful? Was it not? I would like to know so I could do better for the next ones. And I'll see you guys on a Party Finder next. Bye bye.